Hello there. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining the call today. So, the topic for today's discussion is how do you balance your work within life? I've purposely put the structure of the talk that work within life. All of us have talked about work-life balance, and that sometimes feels like that you have life and work which is sort of separate, and that's at least not the way I've thought about it. And I would want through this talk to share my experiences, my thoughts about what I feel about balancing work within life. And as I mentioned, I would love to hear your experiences, your thoughts, your comments, your questions about this topic. As before, I'll set the context for the first few minutes in terms of what do I mean by balancing work within life, what has worked for me, what has not worked for me, how do we address this thing in a more structured manner. So without much ado, I'll just start the discussion on that. So, as all of us are aware that there's a lot of talk about work-life balance, and I just did a Google search yesterday, and I found that there is already like it's a very hot topic. It's all the time being talked about, and people have different kind of things about how do you achieve that balance, and it's a global topic from Harvard Business Review to Times of India to mental health to happiness index. Everyone seems to have a view about it. Everyone seems to have talk about some of their techniques in terms of addressing that. And they talk about it as work-life balance. And I've just framed it in a slightly different manner. The balance has to be of work is just a component of life, and it's not at odds with life. And we'll talk about more about it as we move forward. So, like what I normally do, I tend to think of that if we are talking about it, why do we need to talk about it? Why is this something that is on top of our mind? So, as I said, the term work-life balance suggests that work is outside of life, that you have a life and then work is outside, and work is at odds with life. And that's now not at least the way I've thought about it. So we have traditionally all of us have grown up and across the world that work is seen as a means to an end, whether the end is money, whether the end is reputation, whether the end is having a stable life, and that's how it's on the top that work is a means to an end and not something to be enjoyed, and hence you work is something which is different from life, and then you try to achieve the balance between work and life. So see, it's an acceptable norm ever since we have grown up to first have your basic education, then take a job to provide for your family, and if you have debt, you pay off your education debt. You work diligently at the job to have some kind of career growth. While you are having this career growth, you start having all of us have start having work related stress, and we then think that this is normal. Having work related stress is normal, and as we start having that stress, we start talking about work life balance. We start saying, "Oh, there is so much stress here. I'm not having much of life. I need to have that balance." And we most of the time are then feeling guilty at the lack of balance. Either we are too much attuned towards work, and then you are ignoring your family or what we typically define life, the rest of what we do, or we become immune to we become immune to one of the two sides, and that harmony, that coherence is not easy to achieve. And then what we start saying, and I'm seeing this more recently, we start talking about these lifestyle diseases, whatever the heart diseases, the blood pressure, and things like that, is starts becoming acceptable. And what is so weird is people start saying that this is a lifestyle disease. I mean, it's you start accepting the work stress, we start talking about the balance, and we start accepting these diseases, and we start popping pills in a very regular manner, whether it's diabetes, whether it's blood pressure, whether it's something to do with the heart or anything like that. And this is not how it is supposed to be. I mean, work is supposed to be something which is not at odds with the rest of the life, and work is through work. The idea is not for us to start having stress, start having diseases, and start accepting all of that. So that's why it's extremely important for us, as we want to enjoy life, we want to live longer. That this harmony is extremely important for everyone. So the source of this imbalance. So I started thinking about what is the source of this imbalance. Why do we create that stress? Why do we create what's the need of creating this? So see, we all of us spend disproportionate amounts of our time and life on our work. So between 50 to 60 hours to at in extremes 80 to 100 hours per week on the work. With so much amount of time that we spend on the work, but at the same time we don't feel that need, or we have never really, other than exceptions, we don't really feel the need to find jobs that we love. And it's acceptable again to work in a job without that kind of engagement, without that kind of involvement that we have these engagement measurement through pretty hollow surveys, uh, while at the same time there is an expectation to spend longer hours on the job. I had a pretty recent interesting conversation just about that piece with a very leading CEO in the country, and I was surprised with that mindset that people are still expecting people or measure their engagement through the number of hours that they are spending on the job. And most employees feel an obligation to endure it out in order to move upwards. And then you start seeing very temporal kind of solutions where people are saying that I need to have 4-day work week. I need to have, and this trend is now sweeping across the world, whether it's France, whether it's UK, whether it's US. So at one end, people don't have enough people to work. Then retirement ages are being looked at being increased. At the same time, most people are now saying that we are burnt out, we need lesser hours to work. So this dichotomy is something that needs to get solved. So I mean, if you start thinking, is there work that is in harmony with life, that within life, and if you think about it, most people who are in creative kind of fields, whatever it is, musicians, painters, etc., they do not see what their work as work. They don't see their work as stress inducing. They work in what is called a state of flow. So whether it is flow is when you are completely engulfed into it, you are loving it, you have no sense of time, you have no sense of other emotions, hunger, etc., etc. You are fully involved in it. Well, I mean, we can see people who are in deep research, people who are in even professional gamers playing video games, coders. They are in that state of flow where that McDonald's thing that I'm loving it, that thing sort of kind of comes in. Also, we see that a lot of people who are in social sector, where the personal purpose of making a difference aligns with what they do. And founders, entrepreneurs also are in that state where they don't see the work as something of a burden, and they're driven by a sense of personal purpose. So that harmony can come in two ways. One is by a deep attachment to the kind of work that we all do, and that harmony, then there is that stress is not there in terms of whatever we are putting in terms of hours, in terms of the roles that we are all playing. It can also happen through a sense of disattachment, that harmony. So people who do not get their identity from work, they see the work just as a means to an end. they are able to create a separation from their work and do not have that stress. I know in today's world it's different to achieve that disattachment, but I've seen people who are seeing work as a means to an end and not an end in itself, and they are kind of able to create that separation from their work. Now, when is it a time to aspire for this balance? Ideally, I mean, like anything that is great, we must do as early or whenever that awareness is coming that I am getting stressed by my work. So the earlier it is, the better it is. I know that it is difficult during the early years to choose what you desire to work or find work in the areas, but as early as possible, it's better. Before we start getting into these traps, see, there are multiple traps all of us get in as we start working. So there is an aspiration and trap that, okay, we need to have a bigger car or a bigger house or a bigger vacations or whatever it is in terms of and to fulfill that aspiration, we tend to get into either a debt situation or something like that. So the aspiration for that next asset acquisition and the associated cost for this kind of, we say, okay, let me work for 3 more years under a stress situation till I am able to pay off my EMIs, till I am able to pay off the loans for my house or something, or we tend to start acquiring stuff which is beyond our means. Sometimes we are also getting into a trap of a job title that, okay, my goal was to be X and I have worked for the last 15 years in this job. Let me reach that level. And if there is stress to do that, so be it. And there is a trap which is identity also. I mean, people almost feel that their identity is related to the work. All of us feel that when somebody asks that who you are, you almost say your title of work rather than saying as an individual who we all are. So our identity then starts being defined by our job title, our work. So these traps are very difficult, and they keep sort of engulfing us as we move forward. So it's the faster we are able to consciously get out of these traps, the better it is. And see, we have heard this several times. It's well known that when we start, we say, okay, we are working hard to save money for the family. But by the time whatever is enough money for the family, we realize that the kids have moved on or something. So before that realization happens, we need to really make sure that what we are doing is getting that harmony much earlier than that. So some of my experiences I would want to share that I was pretty young. I was just 31 when I got spondylitis in my neck. I couldn't move my neck for a good amount of time. I was told that this would be lifelong. My daughter was just 2 years old at that point of time, and I couldn't hold her and stuff just because I was under so much pain. Thankfully, now with very conscious realization and changes that I've made in my life, I don't suffer from it. So that was my first realization that at this so much at a younger age, I was just, and it was only stress induced. It wasn't like a physical thing. I missed a lot of my milestones as my kids were growing up fast. And I was now as I look back, I realized that there were some of the traps that I was getting into, whether it was asset related, whether it was title related, whether it was just an identity related trap that I was getting. So over the last several years, in trying to achieve that right harmony, I started working on time allocation limitations. I started putting in my calendar almost red zones or non-negotiable. That's on at these times or on these days, I won't fix up any appointment or meeting. So that was a start. It started off by being a few hours in the week, so that in the weekend I would work, say, on Saturday first half or some hours on Sunday evening, but not the rest of the time. I started putting my own time where I could be in a state of flow. So I started blocking initially Wednesdays mornings to just go into areas that required me to go into depth on any subject about the industry, about the strategy, about how the customers were looking at, and get into where I would just read stuff, where I would read reports, and I would keep no other discussion or meetings, and I loved doing that. I realized that that provided me that energizing environment, which I very much needed, and I found that the middle of the week was best for me. And I what I did was also I broke my role into multiple sub responsibilities. So I started seeing what were the areas of, and I created like a standard consulting thing, but I didn't. I mean, I'm seeing in retrospect it was a consulting sort of thing, but I started seeing what were the areas which would create a high impact, where I could create a high impact through my role, and I liked doing that. So I would prefer, I would put in my calendar and I would put a big chunk because it was high impact and I loved doing that. It was, and then second part was if part of responsibility where it was high impact, but I say had low liking towards that. I mean, say things like typical governance meetings or audit related meetings, which are very important to have, but at times you do not have the right mindset or doing that. So I started developing alternate means towards towards liking it. In terms of, can it be an alternate? Can we think of an alternate approach to do that same problem? Is it possible to gamify some parts of it where there is coding, et cetera, happening? In terms of some meetings, you would almost meditate beforehand so that your mind is clear and you're going with a positive sense of mind. And stuff which was low impact stuff, I started looking at, can I delegate? Can I do through governance? Can I automate? So low impact and high liking stuff, of sometimes people have this habit of getting into the comfort zone. So that piece also, the stuff which was low impact, and I liked it, I would still avoid. And low impact and low liking clearly was a no brainer to kind of remove it. I also started taking, for the last 10 years, at least every year, I would start taking annual breaks and longer breaks. I mean, at least 2, 3 weeks or so. Before that, the first was almost 15 or 20 years of my career, I would not take much breaks, or even if I took, it would be a couple of days here, there, and stuff. And that was not rejuvenating with the things. So that became great rejuvenation time. And I've been doing meditating. It's been extremely helpful for me. Being trying to understand spirituality and seeing how getting into historical context about it, and taking like drawing my learnings from those. So these were some of my experiences. Some things I would decide. Want to hear from everyone as well. So final couple of slides are how do you achieve this work aligned life? So first and foremost thing is just believing that this is possible, because most of us have at times think that it is not possible. So believing that it is possible, and I deserve to have that to have a harmony of work within my life. And also, we don't need to be in the herd, because just because everyone is complaining about work-life balance, it's not that it's not a problem, issue that cannot be solved. And just being an exception or being an exception is the new norm. So don't worry about the fact that others have not been able to solve it. Work towards it, and that harmony gets achieved. Plus, I mean, all of us have seen over the last few years, especially during the pandemic times, we've seen that we don't need a whole lot for simple living. So stop being a victim where we start thinking that I have to work because I need money, because for my future, etc., etc. as soon as that control comes in our own hands, at least even mentally, we start seeing that that mental victimization or dependence goes away and the control comes in our own hands. So some suggestions are that clearly towards breaking the role into responsibilities. Can we create our own role that we love into smaller responsibilities? The way I define, just like you have a build your own sandwich, you can pick up stuff that we like and stuff that we do not like. Can we gamify it? Can we do something else or break it up into another form that we start liking the pieces that we that are assigned to us or that are part of the roles? And then if it is low impact stuff, is it possible towards automating it or doing it through some kind of exception or governance thing? I've also believed this, and I believe it very, very strongly, that it's not important to keep only thinking of moving vertically, because as we move vertically, at times we are tend to add responsibilities, tend to add stresses, tend to add other things which are not desirable. It is equally very, very enjoyable to move horizontally into roles that are more interesting or appeal to us or meet our learning requirements. Plus, as we discussed last time, do not be afraid of leveraging technology as a tool, whatever it is. I mean, these days there's a lot of talk about ChatGPT, Copilot, or something. Leverage that to the maximum so that we free time to our own selves. Owning our own time, non-negotiable zones that I spoke about. Meditating has helped me. I strongly recommend it. And working out in nature, not preferably in gyms. I mean, in gyms, if nothing else is there, then that works. But if out in nature is extremely helpful for the mind. Plus, take breaks. It's in terms of learning, in terms of exploring, in terms of doing hobbies. It's extremely nourishing. So finally, I mean, just this is how typically with a delivered cartoon that we tend to not think about work-life balance, or we use fancier words for it, but it's something that affects us all. And it is important towards us addressing as early as possible, because we are spending so much time on our work, and it is extremely important to get that harmony and not start thinking that lifestyle diseases are something which is normal. So that's it that I had to share. I would now love to hear from all of you in terms of your experiences, in terms of your queries.
So hi, sir. This is Anshuman. Just I had one question regarding. So this is not only about the work-life balance. It's a little deviating, but since I got an opportunity to get some of your guidance, so just sort of asking about leadership. Like that is, I think, one skill which is quite very important to move up the ladder. We don't really realize we're just focusing on hard skills at the early stage of our career. So, how to obtain that skill? So, if any thoughts from your side?
Sure. See, one thing, it's extremely important, Anshuman, to realize that it's we tend to break again our life into a role that we normally play within, say, our family, as different from what we do in life. See, we lead our life. We are already a leader, and so because we are leading our life, we might be leading within our family, playing a role also. And there, applying that common sense, applying that same sort of thought process in a job also should be done. I mean, typically what happens is we start off with being a part of a team, an individual contributor. We grow into becoming a people manager. And there we are, when we are a people manager, we are focusing on assigning tasks, We are focusing on reviewing people. It's very tactical. It's very there is a process, and we just go 1, 2, 3 on that process. Being leader means being broader. I mean, there are multiple things that leadership. See, in manager, you start almost demanding sort of respect. You're not commanding. When you're leader, you are leading by example. You are you start, because beyond leader, you start moving into a mentorship role. You be a leader of the people, where leadership is almost is something which starts coming. People start respecting you as a leader. You're not demanding, you are commanding by your actions, by start almost behaving in terms of common sense. So you're not operating up from hierarchy. You're operating from knowledge. You're operating from respect. You're operating from a wider well-being of that in a much more commonsensical manner than we typically think. So I would say apply what comes, like just like say, your kids look up to you as a leader. I don't know if you have kids right now or not, but uh, apply that same thought. You set an example for them. You set the right values for them. You set the right moral standards for them. You set an expectation in terms of doing some work, going to school or doing the homework and achieving the right grades. It's no different in the work environment. We typically think that we have to go into our title when we move to the work. It's not that. We have to be the same person, and it becomes that way much easier towards doing it. We don't need to be tactically a manager. We need to be naturally a leader. And if you start thinking it in a natural form, it starts coming or flowing much more easily.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Um, Good evening, sir.
Yeah.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Anand. It's been pleasure to connect with you again. So, like you mentioned, work-life balance at this age, it's very much important, and I personally believe so. But I believe like people like us living in a world of expectation where we have a fear of what if I don't do this, and like I have not. We start analyzing ourselves like what if, like different kind of news are coming and you start fearing ourselves like if I don't do this, if I don't perform it, you already performing, but we are in living in a world of fear, world of expectation where your expectation is high and you are matching up, but sometimes it's again a back in your back it's going on and you are not able to focus more, to give more time to your family, to give more time. Like I have a 4-year daughter, I want to spend more time with her. Like you mentioned, everyone doesn't get a chance, but I want to give more time to my family, but it's not happening every week. Like it's a life of weekend, if I say so. How do you see this kind of situation?
Gaurav, what you described is very, very normal for all of us. I mean, typically we tend to give in our culture, the way we have grown up, we tend to give more importance to work. We believe that it's and it would have been naturally for reasons of taking care of the family, for finances, but at times the shift happens and we are unable to see that shift happening. Then when initially you do need to work or give time to that work, and maybe more balance towards work, but when starting to create that, what I said, that was first you believe that this can happen and start taking control of your time. It won't happen. It's not going to be a switch which shifts. Start doing small things. Start, for example, if you want to spend more time in terms of your family and do your work also efficiently. As I described, maybe see what your role is. Can you break it up into smaller responsibilities? Can you start focusing on stuff which you really like and it has high impact? The stuff which you do not like and still has high impact, try some of the other techniques in terms of making it exciting, making it interesting, making it gamified. start getting out of stuff which is low impact, and see if there are ways towards do that. And for your personal time, create those non-negotiable zones, create some times which you start doing for yourself. And the expectations, most time expectations are our own, which are the biggest. We tend to start thinking that it is the family, it is the others. You had heard of that story about that Valmiki, na? When he had killed and he thought he's killing for the family, and the family said, "No, your job is to just
Yeah.
provide minimum
Yeah.
stuff." So sometimes we assign it to the family, the family expectations, and that's why I am working hard, etc., etc. And but it is always our thing. We go into an aspiration trap. We go into a title trap, and we at times go into an identity trap. I mean, you work just because you are you. And people ask कि क्या कर रहे हो और ये तुम कौन हो? The question तुम कौन हो? You start giving कि मेरा ये title.
Right.
Right. So, and because without that title, we find ourselves very, very helpless. So,
Absolutely.
is to first create that awareness and realization, and say that I have to have that time. If you say that I need to have that time, just like you are setting expectations on the work side, you say expectations ki I am more important. You'll see then things start happening.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank God.
Anand, very good evening.
Hey, hey Kumar, Ranjan, great to see you.
Great to see you, Anand. I mean, the admiration for you continues. So, Sundays, this 1 hour of Sunday, I was expecting will be enlightening, and interestingly, it is. While I have a couple of submissions here, Anand. One is very interestingly, because we have been admiring you as a leader when we got an opportunity to work with you for quite some time. The realization is, do we create a pattern of expecting from people that work-life balance at initial stage of career isn't that important? Because hey, you are a GT or an engineer or maybe a seasoned professional who's in the organization, you are required to invest yourself more into the company, more into yourself, work more, life in due course will happen. I mean, do we create that pattern, or do we want the people at initial stage of their career to invest more in work and less in life? Or is work-life balance per se is just, if we go by Maslow's need hierarchy, it is just the highest pyramid structure wherein we say nirvana या self actualization वाली चीज है, जहाँ पे हमने चीजें बहुत अचीव कर ली, अटेन कर ली, कंफर्टेबल हो गए, लाइफ अब शायद हंकी डोरी है, and then we think about work-life balance. So I was actually, I thought maybe I'll bring this perspective to you and listen to your comment on this.
See, one thing is postponing never really helps. I mean, we've seen this across our lives too. When you did, when you were in class 9th or 10th, they said, do this 10th board, after that you can enjoy. Then it became 12th board, then it became college, then it became, okay, you do the job, and then in job you move from one role to another. So taking control, having this realization that work is a means to whatever end I desire, it must happen early on. And I'm seeing these days some of the youngsters are really having that realization, where they say that either I'm going to work for something that is aligned to my purpose, or I love it, or they have very non-negotiable times that, okay, I work for these many hours and I don't work for these many hours, etc., etc. It is this appeal has been happening more to people who in the last few years, and I've seen people who have achieved that. See, the pinnacle, what you described in Maslow's hierarchy, it is not at all related to the amount of finances that you have, other than the very base foundational level that you have enough to eat. After that, to reach that top, because people spend their whole lives, they have extreme high amounts of money, but they are, I mean, everybody complains about the same thing, that I'm under so much stress, etc., etc. So I would say that as soon as that the basic level has been met, then having that realization that, okay, how do I now shift that or create that harmony, very consciously create that harmony.
So it means it is about making choices. So I make a choice that I'll manage my work effectively, my life will be managed accordingly. Or maybe I pick a choice that I will manage my life appropriately and my work will be managed in that way. जैसे हम लोग जनरली टाइम मैनेजमेंट या मैनेजिंग प्रायोरिटीज के बारे में हमेशा we mentioned that there is nothing called time management. It's about self management. So I manage myself and my time is managed accordingly. Is it then exactly about working on our choices, making choices that way? Does it what
the overall thing is that we have to see that the life is a whole, and I need to be in whatever joy as much time as possible within that. Work is a part of it. My spending time with family is a part of it. My self realization or whatever self is a part of it. My working out is a part. Work is a part of the life. I know it's a big chunk of life. As soon as we stop identifying with that work is my life. First is that piece. And then making work joyful also, to the extent possible. Start small, but I mean, start with the belief that it is possible to make work joyful. Don't have work at odds with life. As soon as we have work at odds with life, we say that, okay, इसको मुझे इससे किसी तरह से बचना है, इसको कम करना है. We'll end up with those kind of things कि हफ्ते में 3 ही दिन काम करेंगे, 4 ही दिन काम करेंगे. It doesn't work that way. See, we have to work also, but we have to work in that state of joy, in that state of harmony, in that state of flow. How do we achieve that? Like if you ask a gamer that professional gamer that do you hate what you work at, or a painter or a musician, can we convert part of our work into that same sort of flow as making it a creative endeavor? Or a startup founder, I mean, they won't be saying that I have work-life balance issue unless they stop loving what they actually started the company for.
Very well said, Anand. Thank you so very much.
Sure. Very nice to see you, Rani. Yeah.
Hello, Dr. Anand.
Yeah, hi, Ajay.
Hi. Dr. Anand, you have mentioned there is a no zone mentioned in the calendar. We normally have 40-45 hours a work week. So how you used to like keep block in terms of and how you used to use those time when you are not keeping that time available to anyone?
No, so not in the typical, see, there is typical work week which is there, and then there are other than that also the evenings and Saturdays, Sundays and stuff which is there. So the no zones I had created for outside of work zones, that okay, in those area I will not, nobody can block a meeting time or something for this unless it was a real emergency. Within the work, I created a time zone, which is essentially that I will not have a meeting, but that time I will use towards kind of spending time in areas which I needed to, whatever it is in terms of reading an industry report, keeping myself updated with whatever is happening, say within the company. So I would have a lot of stuff which I wanted to go deeper into or read into, and I like to do that to kind of get a feel of everything that is happening. And I would then use this time towards reading things about what is happening in the ecosystem, in the industry, in the customers, in the technology, in this, but I would not want to block that for any other reason. That was my time to kind of upgrade myself or update myself or spend time into areas which I would normally not have spent that deeper into. Because at times you are spending cursorily times into a lot of things, just moving things along. But going deeper into something which is again high impact and you like to do that, required to block maybe 4, 5, 6 hours and towards getting into that. And that was joyful, that was learning, that was very value additive to the organization as well, because then if every week you are going deeper into a subject which is very high impact, it creates value.
And how you used to keep a proportion between your time between high impact and low impact areas? Because organization will be having some areas which will be high impact, but definitely even for the low impact area, your team will look up to you for your motivation and inspiration.
No, absolutely, absolutely. So as long as see, sometimes what happens is if the one thing that we have to be cautious about, low impact areas and high liking, those are comfort zones that all of us start to get into. That if there is something which we like, but at the same time it may not create as much impact as something that we do not like, but we have to work on. So the low impact area, it's not if you are if you were spending say 4 hours in a week, you bring it down to 1 hour a week. Use that 1 hour towards doing towards structuring it so that you are able to still do the motivation, you are still able to see the governance, you are still able to do whatever is required. So you're not ignoring it, but you're not getting into comfort zones disproportionate to the impact that they create. I would rather spend time into low liking area, but which were high impact, and try to make that into something that I start liking it, than spending a lot of time into my comfort zone of low liking, low impact and high liking areas.
Great. Thank you.
Sure. Great, great. Ajay.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening, Arup.
Sir, when I go through your presentations, it's telling like that all are matching the problems which are coming chronologically when we are getting up to the ladders, and we get into the traps, and very difficult to get rid from those things. One question is coming to my mind, that during this work life or when these working in the organizations, the common one of the problem is we get into the trap of conflict resolutions. So conflict is coming the informations or the directions from the tops, and then we got lost to either follow it, or if I want to follow it, then there is a conflict to horizontal level. Those are not really follow or really want to listen what I want to follow, or if I do not stand up, then also problem. How can we get sort out those kind of problems?
Yeah, no, it's a very great question, Arup, and it happens quite sometime. You're talking about conflicts where maybe the direction that you are getting from say the manager is either not as per your either belief or as per your liking.
Yeah.
Right. So it creates a sense of conflict, and I've always found what works best is towards having a very honest discussion with the manager there. If, for example, if you have gotten an instruction to work on something which you believe is not as per whatever the strategic direction, it's not as per the values of the company, not as per the direction the company ought to be taking, then having a frank discussion with the manager or the manager's manager, if you need to go towards sharing your thought processes, that this is you would like to express your areas where you do not agree with what is essentially happening, and start maybe during that. I found a lot of time during that conversation itself, either I get convinced or I am able to convince the other person, if that person is also fair and is looking towards the interest of the organization. So if you find that things are not as per your liking but still required to be done for the company, then, as I said, that then kind of breaking that up, starting to see how do you make parts of those responsibilities into something that is we start whatever liking. Every responsibility, there is not like that the whole chunk you do not like. There would be parts that you like, there would be parts that you can convert into creative, into gamification, into stuff, and then there would be parts which you cannot do any of that, and you bear that. You say, okay, I mean, see, it's not 100% that you will be there, but if you are able to reduce 100% to 30% that you do not like, that 70% itself energizes so much to do that rest of the 30%. And if you find that if none of that is working, that you are being told towards doing something which is neither as per your belief or as per your liking, and it is if it is once in a while, then you bear it, try some of these techniques, bear it and move on. But if it is a continuous source of stress, pressure, and leading towards other issues, then I think it's time you start thinking about what is important and what is a priority in life, and see, can you move horizontally into a different role. Because if you're good, the organization would always be able to fit you into something else that works. At times, we are more afraid of asking for things or expressing our views because we start thinking of consequences which may or may not be there. And what is the worst that will happen? We have to be prepared for the worst that happens and say that, look, I'm good enough, or my life is very important for me to be without stress. And even if I lose a job, I am good enough to find another one.
So thank you very much to give some valuable the way to handle it. I may be helpful for this. Go with this kind of.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Arup.
Thank you.
Just define, Ranjan, why don't you describe what are your experiences? You have moved, you have started something on your own. How you do the harmony with your work?
From last roughly 45-50 minutes that I have been listening to you, it is like resonating with every bit of thing that you mentioned. And from a distance and at times even closely, we did watch you and we did see you, the way you used to manage. Now when I'm running a firm for last 5.5, 6 years, I realized that if the engagement per se is high, if aspiration is contained well, and your bingo matrix, I would say, the impact and the liking, I think everything is very well carved out and thought, and the starting point is perhaps, rather the foundational point is perhaps the consciousness that you talked about, Anand. I mean, if I am conscious about bringing that balance, if I'm conscious about bringing that equilibria, the kind of tool that you give, basis your experience, I'm sure that is going to help a lot of people, including me, because there are traps, and still the traps I find is inevitable, and I do get into the trap. So if there is a tool that comes in front of you and you know that where you are you actually finding this as a preferred quadrant wherein the impact and the liking is high, or whether it is something that you can comfortably avoid because it is impact low and so is your liking. This is very easy, simple, and when you share that basis your experience, it makes a lot of sense. So I think the crux of whatever you have said as of now, more than your experience, it is also the technique and the tool which is very simple and available to us. So my experience has really been, I do not get too tired because I love every bit of work that I have on my plate. I am still not very efficient. So there are things like procrastination that I do, and I try, but the good part is I realize that maybe I know this is something that I have to improve. I'm trying to improve things like this, which comes from leaders like you, whom we admire. It makes us go much relevant. Rather, this tool becomes more relevant. So 6 years roughly now, from one person, now 42 people that we have in our company. I take a lot of pride, and I owe a bit to leaders like you, because maybe from a distance, but we did watch and observe and see the way you have been managing. So these are the things. Seeing you itself is a good adrenaline rush. And thank you so very much for your input. And I would like to connect with you for a couple of more things, and I'll separately would like to do that.
Absolutely, great. Great job. Congratulations that you are with a team of 42. You have started something which was your dream, and you've growing and achieving or consciously getting to that balance. The efficiency comes. Efficiency, and I've seen that flow brings in efficiency like crazy. If you are able to reach that state of flow, I mean, you work typically 10x that you normally do. So, how to get into that state of flow? Again, it's easier said than done, but it is again not so difficult that you won't even try it. In the first day. It's like meditation. First day, even 1 minute without thoughts is impossible, and then you gradually do it. So and it works. It works. It's amazingly works. I realize it.
Dr. Anand, I like the input that you've given around taking annual rejuvenation break. That is something which possibly I have been not doing so effectively, and definitely I take a cue out of that. That taking a rejuvenation break is definitely important. Thank you. Thanks for that.
Yeah, and don't take the break to kind of get to a zero level from the negative effect of stress. To take the break so that the energy level is so high, or that energizing sort of happens.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we take the break and we then need a break to recover from the break. So,
Yeah. True.
Great. Thanks, everyone. I see somebody else.
Good evening, sir. I'm Anand here, Anand Menon. I worked with you on the new projects and this thing. So one thing I would want to express my experience. So on the delegation part, so now once we had team, so the one thing which has helped me is having a checklist. So you can have a checklist and delegate the work to the team, and the team would, because the team has the capability and the knowledge, but sometimes most of the time it is that they miss some parts. So having a checklist and delegating has really improved my efficiency, because then that there is no fear that something has been missed down, and that improves the overall output. So that has worked for me from delegation point of view, since you just mentioned that, and that relieves a lot of stress. I have seen that, and it has worked for me a lot. So I just wanted to share that. The other question I had in mind is like, see, earlier we are talked about the work related stress which affects the life. Sometimes is this the other way around, like as you move ahead in your life and you have parents and everyone, so there are certain life problems which come up and it affects your work. So most of the time there are weeks where you are not able to focus much, and this affects the work actually. And then there is a stress because you are not able to devote as much time and to that flow, and you're not able to think carefully, or think with that passion. So I'm sure it must have happened to everyone's life, but I just wanted to know how you had handled that situations, maybe.
Yeah, no, great. So, and first, what you talked about delegation, thanks for sharing that experience, and I fully agree with it. In terms of, within life, you will have ups and downs, and all of us will have areas, because if everything was smooth and nice, then we would not appreciate the times where we are really having the good times. So again, I would be, if you have areas and within life or within family that you need to take care of that, you need to take care of it. It is the priority to be done. And it is required to be done. And being fair and communicative to whoever it is within the organization. As you said, in terms of delegating it across. See, delegating doesn't even mean delegating it to your own team. Delegating could mean delegating at times horizontally, delegating at times to your manager. And people ought to be, when you are in trouble, people ought to be taking ownership of that, because you would do the same. When somebody
Yes.
else has a family related or whatever you are saying, a life related issue, people step in and take ownership of that. Don't over stress yourself towards saying that no, कि मेरा काम है तो मुझे ही करना है किसी भी तरह से, let me do that, and then burn out at both ends. See, a candle burning at both ends is very, very dangerous. So ask for help.
Okay.
And don't feel either embarrassed. See, as again, culturally, we are very embarrassed to ask for help, thinking कि ये तो मेरा काम है मुझे. You be very candid. See, but first is being very candid to yourself and saying, my priority is to take care of this thing which is happening. When you are saying life, I'm presuming it is within family, with your parents or whatever
Yes.
it is, for the kid or for
Yes.
you say, this is my priority, I have to take care of that. Once you have that realization that I will take care of this, then going around to your ecosystem, and the ecosystem includes everybody. Ecosystem includes the horizontal ecosystem, your team ecosystem, and your manager ecosystem, and saying, I need help in this area. For the next, whatever, 10, 7, 15, 30, 60 days, I will be preoccupied on this thing. I will be working at 50% of my efficiency. And during this time, I want you to cover for me.
Okay.
If you are transparently expressing this out, you will see people coming in. But if you are not expressing, if you're trying to somehow manage something, it would be you'll be unfair on both ends. You'll be unfair at your this priority, and you'll be unfair towards your work also. And I've seen always that people always step in. People always step in.
Yeah. Exactly. Sure. Thanks for sharing. Yeah.
Great to see you, Anand. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Great. All right, everyone. Thanks again for being part of this thing. And as I said earlier, just share any thoughts if you have for the next talks, next discussion, whichever way, or either on this or LinkedIn or whichever, DM me. Thank you.
Thanks,
all right.
sir.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.